Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 96, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to your podcasts and videos on YouTube. We got quite a show. We're back into the typical MMA action. We have fights that have been announced. We are previewing this week's PFL card, recapping UFC Fight Night Kansas City, and previewing UFC Fight Night Des Moines, Iowa. Really excited to talk about MMA this week. We're getting ready for the summer months, some of the good pay-per-views. Plenty more pay-per-views to be announced, but I am loving the UFC's schedule as they're booking more location-based fight nights and new locations or locations I haven't been to in quite some time. It's beautiful here in the Valley. I thought it was about to already be too hot, but it's already in the low 80s, high 70s here this week. The most beautiful April since I've lived here. Just soaking up all the cool evenings and beautiful weather that I can. What a sports week. My Avalanche are fighting for dear life as they go into Game 6 at home tomorrow against the Dallas Stars. The NFL draft, I thought my Pittsburgh Steelers killed it. The mockery of Shedeur Sanders. And just excited to go hit some balls after this at the range here. I have a Friday off to get some golf in, much needed. If you're in sales, end of month, what that's like as we dip into May. So enough about me. Let's talk fights. So some fights that have been announced. We have a swap fight for the next upcoming pay-per-view as Gavin Tucker's out. So insert Daniel Santos against Zhang Yang Li at UFC 315. We have Jordan Levitt and Kurt Hollabaugh May 31st. Absolute bangers in Atlanta. Kamaru Usman's back taking on the young up-and-coming Joaquin Buckley June 14th. And the veterans Michael Chiesa and Court McGee squaring up. An absolute violent affair. I love to see this. He said he was down to fight the up-and-comers. We have Rafael Fiziev taking on Ignacio Bahamondes June 21st. And then the BMF retirement bout for Dustin Poirier. We all knew it was coming. He's taking on Max Holloway, UFC 318, July 19th in NOLA, New Orleans, up in his hometown territory for Dustin Poirier. Elsewhere in MMA, Talia Santos suspended 6 months for violating their anti-doping policy. She gets off the UFC rosters, trying to find a way. Tough break for Talia. This past Saturday, I got to see some local fights. I got to go to Rough, and the headliner was the next Red Hawk Academy soldier heading into the UFC as Tommy McMillan made slight work of his opponent in the main event, and he's preparing himself this summer for Dana White Contender Series. He was supposed to fight last season, injured his shoulder before a big-time fight against a very highly touted prospect in Austin Bashi. And then he had two other guys, one for the amateur title and another guy early. So Red Hawk going 3-0 on the Rough. Pretty cool experience, cheap tickets, good seats, rowdy environment. Fight after fight after fight. I really enjoyed myself. Might have to catch some other local fights out here in the Valley. But PFL this weekend, it's the heavyweights and light heavyweights, the last of the first round. This will be ESPN Plus at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. The main card on ESPN2 at 7 p.m. Pacific. And there's not a lot of exciting fights, to be honest. I've been saying this about the PFL. I really feel like they've dropped the ball. But we have Phil Davis taking on Rob Wilkinson, Alexander Romanov taking on Tim Johnson, Oleg Popov taking on Carl Williams, and Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Abraham Babley. So a lot of ex-UFC talent here for the PFL. But let's talk UFC. We had UFC Fight Night Kansas City last Saturday. Crushed it in my picks. Was this close to a parlay. Michelle Pereira really just fucked me over. But I went 12-2 in my picks. Put that shit in the bank. Overall, 580 wins, 292 losses, 8 no contests or draws. On the year, that puts me at 97 wins, 51 losses, 1 no contest or draw. An attempt to recap the entire evening, I would say the prelims obviously started off hot. We had 4 consecutive finishes, including that infamous Malcolm Wellmaker highlight. The fans were there early. They were super involved doing the Chiefs chant. You know, I hated the booing throughout the evening, especially when the card has been so good, but I think they got spoiled there. But it's like, man, one fight where there's not an immediate knockout. We don't need to sit there and boo the entire 15 minutes. That's definitely something that grinds my gears about MMA. But the decision fights were even solid. The main card had violence and some quality moments all around. I would just say the Pereira fight was the biggest clunker of the night because I thought that would be violence. So I'm going to recap this a 6 out of 10. I believe that's what I previewed it at. Solid fight night card overall. Some good fights we did not break down. How about Jocelyn Edwards with a quick round 1 TKO over Chelsea Chandler? We had Timmy Kwamba with a round 2 TKO over Roberto Romero. And Jacqueline Amarim with a round 2 submission via rear naked choke over Poliana Viana. I would say that's probably the last of Poliana and Chelsea in the UFC. But let's kick it off in the prelims. I told you guys I was excited for this guy. 30 years old, coming into the UFC. Malcolm Wellmaker with a round 1 TKO over Cameron Simon. Performance of the night, 50 G's to Malcolm. And he's been going viral for posting videos of his full-time welding job while still trying to train and make it into the UFC. He said, if I get a $50,000 bonus, I will quit my job. He posted a video Monday morning quitting his job. Love to see that type of shit. Those are the stories that I'm hoping to bring here at Bows and TKOs over the course of the next year. But some moments, I mean, not a lot here. Both men were pretty measured, trying to pull each other in, looking to counter early. And Malcolm was just waiting to unleash that nasty left hand. And boy, did he. He caught Cameron, and he found out in the worst of ways. So Malcolm, just so cool, calm, collected in there. You know, he's a little bit older of a prospect. I can't wait to see what's next for him. He said, Dana, I'm from the Atlanta area, right in my back door. Please put me on that card. I hope that's the case. So statistically, it only took Malcolm 6 total and significant strikes with the knockdown. Cameron landed 9 total and significant strikes. So Malcolm stays undefeated. That winning streak is 9. He's 2-0 in the UFC, including the Contender Series. For those of you that are just tuning in, I count the Contender Series fight or Tough Championships as a UFC victory as well. And Cameron now extends his losing streak to 3. He is 4-3 in the UFC. I think since the end of 2022, so he has been active, has had some success. But what's next? I mean, I think the timing may be tight. This guy fought this year as well. But let's put Malcolm Wellmaker and Maween Gafurov. That would be a great next step. And for Cameron, I think the UFC does give him a shot. He's still young. So how about Ricky Tercios? Still in the bantamweight division, we had tons of bantamweights here. Damon Blackshear with a unanimous decision over Alan Tengeli. And this fight, for the most part, was just really Damon stalking Alan Tengeli patiently, picking him apart. And Alan Tengeli had no answers on the evening. He didn't mix up his attack. He didn't try to mix in grappling. He just stayed in the same stance and let Blackshear come at him. And clearly that didn't work. And the stats speak for that. Damon landed 127 total strikes, 125 of which were significant. He was landing clean. And Alan Tengeli only landed 61 total, so less than half, and significant. And he was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. Damon extends that winning streak to 3. He's 5-3 since 2023, one of the more active fighters in the promotion. And Alan Tengeli starts a new losing streak. He is 1-2 since 2023. So what's next? I would like to see Blackshear take on Yoni Barcelos. I think that's the fight to make. And for Alan Tengeli, how about Cody Gibson? Another bantamweight showdown that had been rebooked. We had Chris Gutierrez with a split decision victory over John Castaneda. And I was a bit shocked this was a split decision, but was a decently contested fight. Chris on the evening was really keeping John at distance until the third round with his vicious kicks and pressure. John looked uncomfortable until the third round. He just decided to come forward, eat the shots to close the distance, and let it all go. And that was successful, but it was just too late. He did get a takedown, but he had lost 2 close rounds coming into round 3 and needed a finish. And sometimes a guy like John or maybe even Alan Tengeli, when you're down, a round and a half, it's all looking the same. Sometimes you just got to go for it, right? Especially Alan Tengeli back against the wall, a little bit of an older fighter. Just let that dog out in you. Go for broke. John and Alan Tengeli did not do that, and it cost them in these fights. Statistically, Chris landed 65 total strikes, 46 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedown attempts with the knockdown. John landed 76 total strikes, 41 of them significant, with a takedown and 4 minutes and 50 seconds of control time. And a lot of that higher volume from John was when he was on top, just little pitter-patter up top, where when they were standing, Chris was definitely having success. But Chris now extends that winning streak to 2. He is 3-2 since 2023. John extends his losing streak to 2. He's an even 2-2 since 2023. But how about we book Chris and Brady Hiestand in his return? He'd been out from injury for a while. I think that'd be a great scrap. And for John, he could look to rebound against Arichi Long. Moving into the prelim headliner, 2 guys that damn near retired put on a show. We had Matt Schnell with a unanimous decision over Jimmy Flick. And typically for these guys, their fight's chaos, right? A fight with either man, you got to be ready for chaos. And boy, were they. They stuck to their usual chaotic routine. And again, both men returning after contemplating retirement. They showed that they can still scrap. They're still pretty young when it comes to retirement age. But Jimmy looked to just try to take Schnell down, grind out a victory. But Schnell was able to land enough good strikes while the fight was standing to win rounds. Jimmy was uber aggressive with the grappling and had a very high pace. He had multiple takedowns, a lot of control time in round 1. In round 2, Matt landed a bunch of nice shots even after being taken down again in round 2. And then round 3, Flick was able to get more takedowns, but he was definitely slowing down. And Schnell took advantage by reversing him, throwing up submission attempts, mostly triangles, and landing good shots while Jimmy just had takedowns and tried to keep top control. So that's why he lost on the scorecards. Breaking down the stats, Matt landed 88 total strikes, 35 of them significant. He had 3 submission attempts, a reversal, and 3 minutes and 53 seconds of control time. Again, the pace these guys put on very high. And Jimmy only landed 48 total, so 40 less, 12 significant. So again, a lot of it with the grappling. He did have 5 takedowns and 7 attempts. So if he wanted it, he was getting it. He had 1 submission attempt, a reversal, and 8 minutes and 28 seconds of control time. So Matt now ends that 3-fight losing streak. He does start a new winning streak. He's 2-4 since 2022. Jimmy extends his losing streak to 2 and is 1-4 since 2023. So what's next? Well, I think the fight that makes the most sense for Matt is Tim Elliott in his return, 2 veterans going at it. And I'd assume this is it for Jimmy Flick. Brutal way to come back. Moving on into the main card, we had Ikram Aliskerov with a round 1 TKO over Andre Muniz. Another fight I got right. But man, Ikram needed an outing like this. He was flowing, he was dominating, and just unleashing beautiful kicks and combinations throughout the fight. He had Andre on his back foot as long as the fight lasted, and he landed a beautiful shot that Muniz was not coming back from. I didn't think Andre would make this a good fight. I thought it was closer than the odd maker suggested it. That did not come to fruition at all. Ikram with a beautiful display here. Statistically, Ikram landed 55 total strikes, 44 significant. He also had a knockdown. Andre landed 16 total insignificant strikes, was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts, so he didn't get much going for him at all. So now Ikram starts a new winning streak. He moves to 3-1 since 2023. Andre starts a new losing streak. He is 1-3 since 2023. So what's next? Well, I think Ikram and Michelle Pereira on a quick turnaround is a hypothetically fun matchup, and that makes sense maybe for the Baku card. And for Andre, how about a fight with Gerald Mearshart? Moving on, probably the best display of the evening, Randy Brown with a round 2 knockout over Nicholas Dalby. Fight of the night, 50 G's for Randy Brown. And, you know, Randy's been around, but this really was that coming out party for a lot of the casual fans, in my opinion. He absolutely destroyed a very tough and durable veteran. He was landing nice, sharp, straight shots. You know, he's a very long, lanky fighter. And Nicholas was just fighting for his life right out the gate. Randy hit him with such a big, wide right that had so much velocity on it. When it landed, it moved Dalby's nose like 4 inches over. It was visibly broken. He somehow survived the round. But then not much happened in the second, as Dalby kind of knew he was in danger. He was standing in the pocket trying to land. Brown got the best of him and is the first fighter to finish the Danish vet and Nicholas Dalby. What a show, Randy Brown. So Randy landed 58 total strikes, 54 of them significant. He had a knockdown. And Nicholas landed 40 total strikes, 26 of them significant. He also had a knockdown in 1 minute and 22 seconds of control time. So Randy starts a new winning streak. He moves to 4-2 since 2023. And Nicholas extends his losing streak to 2. He is 3-2 since 2023. Pretty active for a 40-year-old veteran. Well, what's next? Randy broke his left hand, so he'll be out for a bit. But I'm thinking a fun stylistic matchup with Michael Venom Page is in store. And for Nicholas, how about Max Griffin? Then moving on to a fight I got wrong, a little bit of a clunker. We had Abus Magomedov with unanimous decision over Michelle Pereira. And this was the biggest shocker of the evening for me. Not that Abus won, but Pereira is known for being one of the more wild and aggressive fighters. And he just had stone feet in the first round. Abus came forward with kicks and combos and had Michelle backpedaling for the first round. Round 2, Michelle was more offensive and had success. I think he actually won the round, but it was a still very close, tight round, and not as much volume as I expected in this fight. In round 3, neither man acted like they wanted to win it. They were pretty sloppy. I was expecting one of them to go out and put a stamp on a victory, but neither man did, and Abus was able to win a close decision victory with not a lot of output, and both men, I think, lose a bunch of stock here. Statistically, Michelle landed 74 total and 73 significant strikes. Abus landed 83 total and 78 significant, so 9 more total and 5 more significant strikes. He had 1 takedown in 4 attempts and 1 minute and 1 second of control time. So Abus extends that winning streak to 3. He's 3-2 since 2023. He actually enters the rankings because Michelle was ranked at number 15. And Michelle extends that losing streak to 2. He's 3-2 since 2023 and exits the top 15. So what's next? I would like to see Abus take on Chris Curtis. And for Michelle, how about that Ikram Aliskerov fight I was previously mentioning? And Ikram may get a better quality fight, but I think it'd be fun stylistically. Both men would be down. And let's run it here fairly quickly. Then moving on, another fight I got wrong. We had David Onama with unanimous decision over Giga Chikadze. And Giga came out and was doing work on the feet as I expected. His kicks were brilliant, and he was just outstriking Onama. And then probably with about 1.5 minutes left in the first round, Onama resorted to grappling. He took Giga down and held him there. He went right back to the well the rest of the fight with his grappling. Got a takedown early in round 2 and round 3. He was able to control Giga on the back for the rest of the fight, avoid the striking clinic that Chikadze was putting on. I wouldn't say this was the most fan-friendly way to win, but a victory and a ranking to follow is next for David. Onama has shown he's becoming a pretty well-rounded fighter since his early days in the promotion. Statistically, Giga landed 71 total strikes, 43 of them significant. David landed 72 total, 49 significant, so pretty even on the volume, although he controlled him for like 10 minutes. but he did have 3 takedowns. He was 3 for 3 and 6 minutes and 15 seconds of control time. Now, David extends his winning streak to 4, all of those since 2023. He enters the top 15 at number 14. And Giga extends his losing streak to 2. He's 1-2 since 2023 and exits the top 15. So what's next for these guys? How about David Onama and Bryce Mitchell in a fight? And Giga could square up with Chepe Mariscal. Then we had the co-main event, the retirement fight, where Zhang Mingyang had a round 1 TKO over Anthony Smith. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Zhang. And sadly, you hate to see a retirement go out this way. I'm just as big of a fan of Anthony Smith as anyone. Again, I got to meet him in person when I went to UFC 299 in Miami, or 301, whatever that was. I think it was 299. I like him on the desk. Good guy. Just worked his ass off to get to where he is. But man, he looked slow. He had no head movement. It looked like he just wanted to get hit in this final showdown, and boy, did he. I mean, John looked mean. Big, long bully just picking Smith apart in his retirement fight. Was landing many nasty elbows. Had Anthony bloodied up. Big cuts on his head. A dominant display from Mingyang. They did have a good retirement celebration. Plenty of time to celebrate him with the quick finish. The video package. A good way to go out from the promotion, but a tough performance here because Zhang Mingyang looked like a world beater. Statistically, Anthony only landed 11 total and 10 significant strikes. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. Zhang landed 76 total, 63 of them significant. That's more than the output in the Giga fight and the Michel Pereira fight. And he had 1 minute and 28 seconds of control time. So Anthony retires with a 3-fight losing streak. He was 2-5 since 2023. Probably kept his career going, locking in that Gilly against Vitor Petrino. But he was active. 7 fights in 2 years. That's impressive. Zhang extends that winning streak to 12. 4-0 in the UFC, and now he's a ranked fighter at number 14. So lots of newly ranked opponents here, or fighters. So what's next for Zhang? I'd like him to square up with Volkan Ozdemir in Baku. That's the fight to make. Then in the highly anticipated main event, we had Ian Machado Gary with a unanimous decision over Carlos Prates. And this fight was just Ian showcasing his fighting IQ, his distance control, his speed, his precision, and his newly acquired mixed bag of tricks. I mean, he's mixing it up in there. He's adding the wrestling. And Carlos was somewhat of a one-trick pony. He was just loading up on that big left, throwing it wildly at times, head ducked. In the first few rounds, he was whiffing them. Carlos couldn't get Ian really timed up and matched up against the cage. He only threw 7 strikes in round 1, 12 in round 2, 10 in round 3, and 12 in round 4. The fans are like, man, Carlos almost had Ian finished. This was a close fight. This was not. Ian easily was up 4-0 going into the 5th and final round. In this round, Ian continued to have success the first few minutes, but Carlos was able to land a few shots that rocked Ian, and then he had a very terrible, lazy, double leg attempt. And while he was on his knees, Carlos gave all the energy he had left on some ground and pound, but it wasn't enough. And I think that the finish there was a little bit overdone. People are like, man, if Carlos landed 2 or 3 more strikes, he would have been finished. I don't necessarily agree with that. I honestly was shocked that Carlos was able to stay fresh for the most part in a 5-round fight, although he wasn't throwing much output out there. But for a guy that smokes so much cigarettes, I almost have to feel like we have to give him credit on his cardio in his first 5-round main event. Regardless, beautiful, brilliant outing for Gary on short notice. We learned Carlos has a lot of room to grow when he can't just stalk his opponents down and fire away with his opponents up against the cage. And how about that stone cold celebration? Ian putting the cigarette out, smashing it out with his foot. Love to see it. And trust me, I'm not the biggest Ian Machado Gary fan, but man, is he an amazing striker. And this was an absolute, utter domination. Now, the stats speak for that too. Ian landed 141 total strikes, 126 of them significant. He had 4 takedowns in 19 attempts, so credit Carlos for defending some of those, but the output there for 5 rounds is insane. Ian also had 3 minutes and 9 seconds of control time. Carlos landed 64 total, that's 80 less, and 63 significant strikes with 1 minute and 46 seconds of control time. So Ian starts a new winning streak. He moves to 6-1 since 2023. He moves up 1 spot in the rankings to number 6. And Carlos ends that 11-fight winning streak. He starts a new losing streak. He's 5-1 in the UFC. Now, I know that it's been said that Ian will be the backup fighter for the title fight, but I don't think he's going to be able to get a chance there. So I do think he's going to have to fight again before another title opportunity, as Shavkat Rakhmonov should be the next guy. For that reason, I do think Ian tries to avoid Sean Brady, and he's going to fight the former champion in Leon Edwards, which would ideally be a badass fight if Leon could snap back, because he's looked like absolute trash. And then Carlos, how about Rinat Fakhretdinov? That's the fight that makes the most sense. Regardless, I can't wait to see either man back in the octagon. And boy, did Kansas City get a showcase. Zhang Bingyang, welcome to the UFC. He's on everyone's radar now. The main event was fantastic. Ikram Aliskerov, Randy Brown, the prelims. You can't ask for more in a fight night card. And that sets us up back. Another Midwest affair. UFC Fight Night, Des Moines, Iowa. Prelims, ESPN Plus at 4 p.m. Pacific. Main card on ESPN2, 7 p.m. Pacific. And if I were to preview this card, I do think the prelims are pretty light for most, casual fans. But I do like the matchmaking. I think it'll deliver a quality product. I expect the fan base to be wild, savage in there like Kansas City was. The main card definitely is underwhelming for a location fight night card. But the main event and the co-main event have me stoked and are worth the price of admission. I'm also previewing this a 6 out of 10. A good fight that we will not break down. We have Fury FC alum Cameron Smotherman taking on Contender Series alum Serhi City. But we'll kick this off in the prelims. We have Gaston the Dream Killer Bolanos, 32 years old with an 8-4 record, taking on Quang Bang Lee, 33 years old with an 8-2 record. Now, most fans may not know these two, but again, this is just solid matchmaking. 2 newer fighters to the UFC who are in their primes at 32 and 33. Quang is still seeking his first win in the UFC, but it's going to be a tough test for him against Gaston. Gaston is a heavy striker, and I do think will be too much for Quang, who has finished in his last bout. Breaking this one down, Gaston is a Bellator alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 2-1 since 2023. 6 of his 8 wins are via knockout. Now, Quang is an LFA alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, 4-2 since 2023, but 0-2 in the UFC, and 3 of his 8 wins are via submission. Now, I expect Quang to look for takedowns and should be able to hang on the feet, as he's just going to have to avoid the big power shots from Bolaños, but I don't expect that to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if this was just a wildfire fight that doesn't last very long, and Quang just full sends it anyways. For that reason, I'm taking Gaston Bolaños. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Jillian, the Savage Robertson, 29 years old with a 15-8 record, and the number 9 next to her name, taking on Marina Rodriguez, 37 years old, with a 17-5-2 record and the number 12 next to her name. Now, this is a clash of style showdown, as Marina does her best work on her feet when she could stand and strike and not have to worry about takedowns coming her way. And that's definitely cost her in the past few years when she's fought grappling heavy women. Jillian is going to look to get the fight down as early as possible. She's very active looking for submissions, and is going to look to exhaust Rodriguez as early as possible, because Jillian's cardio's been on point, especially since she's went down to strawweight. Breaking this down, Jillian has a BJJ a black belt in She has a BJJ and kickboxing style. She does have a black belt in BJJ. She trains out of the Goat Shed Academy with Mr. Dean Thomas. She has the most finishes in UFC women's flyweight division history at 7. The most submission wins in UFC women's history at 7. The most submission wins in UFC women's flyweight history at 6. She has the highest top position percentage in UFC women's flyweight division history at 41.9%. She's on a 3-fight winning streak, is 4-1 since 2023, and 9 of her 15 wins are via submission. Now, Marina has a purple belt in BJJ. She has a dark blue with a black tip in Muay Thai. She's a Contender Series alum. She's on a 2-fight losing streak, is 1-3 since 2023. 7 of her 17 wins are via knockout, and she has a 3-inch leg reach advantage. Now, you'd think Marina would be more prepared with her working on takedown defense the past few years, but Jillian is a different animal, especially since she's moved down to strawweight. I do think Marina will have some success on her feet as long as it stays there, and will need to have a lot of movement, a lot of nice fakes, kicks to keep Jillian at distance, but I don't think she will do enough in that department. For that reason, I'm taking Jillian Robertson. We are putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Azamat Iron Bakoev, 29 years old with a 19-3 record, taking on Ryan Man of Steel Loader, 33 years old with an 8-1 record. Now, both of these men are also new faces to the UFC that are hitting their prime windows at 29 and 33. A win here could really set both men up well in the promotion and in the very hard-hitting middleweight division. I would say Ryan is more of a complete fighter. We saw that on The Ultimate Fighter. And Azamat dominated Zach Reese in his UFC debut, and he has wins over people like Dylan Budka in his LFA days. Breaking this down, Azamat trains out of American Top Team. He's an LFA alum and former champion with 2 different defenses. He's on a 7-fight winning streak, 1-0 in the UFC. 8 of his 9 wins are via submission, 7 via knockout, so 16 of his 19 wins via finish. Now, Ryan trains out of Team Alpha Male. He's an A1, UFL, and Ultimate Fighter alum and champ. This is his UFC debut as he was supposed to fight Cody Brundage March 1st. 5 of his 7 wins are via knockout, and he does have a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, I expect this fight to be high-paced. Ryan, of course, especially training with Uriah Faber, I expect to mix in grappling to get this fight everywhere. Azamat is a hard hitter, so if Ryan could keep him at distance, and when he tries to close distance, look for those takedowns, he could try to wear on Bakoev and outpoint him. I wouldn't be surprised if this finished inside the decision with how hyped both fighters will be and how much they have on the line. Especially Ryan at 33, he's really got to send it. But I am taking Azamat Bakoev, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. In the prelim headliner, we got 2 stud veterans. We have Misha Cupcake Tate, 38 years old with a 20-9 record, taking on Yana Foxy Santos, 35 years old with a 15-8-1 record. Now, win, lose, or draw, this could be the final fight for either women or maybe both of them. Yana has fought 3 times since the beginning of 2023. Misha's only fought once, and she's had 4 fights since she returned from her initial retirement. Breaking it down, Misha has a submission wrestling style. She trains out of Extreme Couture. She has a purple belt in BJJ. She's the former bantamweight champion. She has the most submission attempts in UFC women's bantamweight division history with 12. She was the 2011 Female Fighter of the Year, the 2016 Comeback of the Year against Holly Holm at UFC 196. She's a Strikeforce alum and former champ. She's on a 1-fight winning streak, 2-2 since 2021 when she came out of retirement, although she hasn't fought in a year and a half. and 8 of her 20 wins are via submission. Now, Yana has a Taekwondo and Muay Thai style. She has a black belt in BJJ. She's a K1, M1, and a Victa alum and former champion. She's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 1-2 since 2023. 7 of her 15 wins are via knockout. She has a 3.5-inch reach advantage and a 2.5-inch leg reach advantage. But looking at this, I mean, Misha has struggled if she can't take her opponents down and go to work. Yana has struggled against grappling heavy competition, and we saw that as recently as her fight against Holly Holm. I don't think Yana is going to be able to avoid the grappling of Tate, so Tate is going to wear her out, and win on the scorecards, or maybe even get a submission. For that reason, I'm taking Misha Tate. I am putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the main card, we have Mason the Dragon Jones, 30 years old with an 11-2 record, taking on Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens, 38 years old with a 28-19 record. Well, we know that Jeremy has signed a 1-fight contract in his UFC return. He's putting the pressure on himself and going to let it all go in the octagon and try to put the pressure on Mason. Mason has fared well in Cage Warriors, which is a very good promotion. He beat David Onama. He lost to Mike Davis and Ludovic Klein in his last UFC run because he has fought in the UFC before. So he does have good experience, and he's just now hitting his prime window at 30. Breaking it down, Mason is on a 4-fight winning streak. He's a Cage Warriors alum and former champion. 7 of his 11 wins are via knockout. He has a 3-inch reach advantage and a 2.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Jeremy has a purple belt in BJJ. He's tied with Anderson Silva for the second most knockdowns in UFC history at 18. He's the little heathen, man. He packs a punch. He's also recently a PFL alum, but he was with the UFC for 14 years. He's on a 1-fight losing streak. He's 1-2 since 2022, all in the PFL promotion. 19 of his 29 wins are via knockout. Now, Jeremy's tough. We do not deny that. But I think going from BKFC back to the UFC 4 years later is not going to be an easy feat. I do think you pick up some bad habits, just kind of out-dogging your opponents at BKFC, and you do take a ton of damage. I think Mason's going to mix in grappling well and test the chin of Stevens. For that reason, I'm taking Mason Jones, but I'm avoiding him in any parlay. You never know with Jeremy's power, he's going to go for broke. Moving on, we have Montel Quick Jackson, 33 years old with a 15-2 record and the number 15 next to his name, taking on Daniel Soncora Marcos, 32 years old with an undefeated 17-0 and 1 no contest record. Now, this is a fun stylistic matchup. Again, very deep bantamweight division, but this should put on another violent showcase for the fans in the main card. It's really going to be hyphy at this point in Iowa. Montel just got back into the top 15. He's going to look to defend his spot. The time is now for both of these men in their primes at 32 and 33. So I do think there's a ton on the line, especially for Jackson, who typically only has been fighting once a year. Breaking it down, Montel has a purple belt in BJJ. He has the most knockdowns in UFC bantamweight division history at 11. He's tied with Chuck Liddell, Quentin Jackson, Josh Emmett, and Cody Garbrandt for most consecutive fights with a knockdown landed in UFC history at 7. He has the most knockdowns landed in a UFC bantamweight bout. He had 4 against JP Buys. He has the highest takedown accuracy percentage in UFC bantamweight history at 56.2%. And I mean, those stats are crazy. Those are some big names to be against, and it's kind of shocking he has the most knockdowns in the division. I'm sure we will see another one this weekend. He's the King of the Cage and Contender Series alum. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. 8 of his 14 wins are via knockout, and he does have a 6.5-inch reach advantage. Now, Daniel is a Contender Series alum. He's undefeated on a 17-fight winning streak with that draw due to an accidental groin strike, but he's 5-0-1 in the UFC, and 8 of his 17 wins are via knockout. Now, Daniel has been streaking. He's full of confidence right now, but Montel is his toughest test to date. Marcos hasn't fought a lot of close decisions lately. No, he has fought a lot of close decisions, and I don't think that that's going to be enough to fight that style against a long, rangy striker with power like Montel. I do think Montel is going to turn Daniel into a grappler here. For that reason, I'm taking Montel Jackson. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Then moving on here, we get a fun veteran showdown. We got Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez, 38 years old with an 18-5 record, taking on Santiago, the Argentine dagger Ponzinibbio, 38 years old with a 31-8 record. Now, this is a fun veteran showdown to give a man the opportunity to kind of keep trucking along at the twilight of their UFC career. Neither man's looked fantastic of late, but D-Rod has fought stiff competition and has looked to be taking things seriously and has come in at good shape. I do think he's more of a technical boxer with nice straight shots, and Santiago lives off kind of those big loopy hooks, and, I don't know. Although his last 2 victories are by TKO, I don't think he has as much power left unless he can get in like a 15-minute scrap, really exhaust D-Rod, and find his chin, which is possible. Breaking it down, Daniel is a southpaw fighter. He trains at a Syndicate MMA. He has a purple belt in BJJ. He's a King of the Cage, Bellator, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak. He's 1-2 since 2023. 8 of his 18 wins are via knockout. Now, Santiago trains out of American Top Team. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's an Ultimate Fighter Brazil alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 1-2 since 2023. 17 of his 30 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 8 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. I honestly do think this will just be a kickboxing fight. I don't expect takedown attempts, maybe some clinch work up against the cage. But I think D-Rod is well prepared. He has a little bit more left in the tank than Ponzinibbio. For that reason, I'm taking Daniel Rodriguez, but I'm avoiding this on any parlay where possible. And it's kind of funny. We haven't heard as much about this guy as I thought we would, but we get Bo Nickel, 29 years old with an undefeated 7-0 record, taking on Rainier de Ritter, RDR, 34 years old with a 19-2 record and the number 13 next to his name. Well, the time's here. We finally get to see Bo in the top 15, and RDR has the chance to win over all of the UFC fan base with a huge upset if he could pull it off. The thing is, RDR has a lot more experience and has worked on striking for longer. RDR has good grappling, but I think Bo is so good there, it doesn't matter if RDR looks to grapple, he's stepping into danger in my opinion. There's kind of levels to the game, right? And I do think wrestling is the more dominant base, where RDR has different martial art experience. Now, RDR has lived off grappling in his last 2 UFC fights to find a path to victory, so I'm not sure if he's just going to be able to outpoint or highlight Bo enough to force an issue. For that reason, Bo's definitely in a good spot. Breaking this down, Bo has a wrestling style. He's a southpaw fighter. He trains out of American Top Team. He has a blue belt in BJJ. He has a D1 wrestling background out of Penn State. He's a 3-time national champion. He's an Icon and Dana White Contender Series 2-time alum. He's undefeated on a 7-fight winning streak, 5-0 in the UFC, and 4 of his 7 wins are via submission. Now, Rainier has a BJJ, judo, and submission grappling style. He has a black belt in judo and BJJ. He's a former one middleweight champion with 2 successful title defenses and was also a light heavyweight champion. He's the 3rd double champ in ONE history. He had the 2020 Submission of the Year against Ogla Song, the 2022 Submission of the Year against Vitaly Bigdash. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, 3-1 since 2023. 13 of his 19 wins are via submission. 2 of his 4 losses are via knockout. Now, this is all about the Bo Show. The stage is set. We get to continue to measure how good Bo can be. At 29 years old, with only 3 years of pro experience, he still has a lot of room to grow. I think he comes in with a good game plan and finds a way. In his last fight against Paul Craig, he tried to prove he isn't grappling dependent, but I think he just does whatever he needs to win this fight. For that reason, I'm taking Bo Nickel. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the main event. We have Corey Sandman Sandhagen, 33 years old with a 17-5 record and the number 4 next to his name, taking on Davison Deuce de Guerra Figueiredo, 37 years old with a 24-4-1 record and the number 5 next to his name. Now, Davison has looked great and really has done a lot of good work since moving up to the bantamweight division, but I think it's time for him to slow down a little bit. He's taken on one of the best in the division, and he's also in his prime. Figueiredo has relied on his grappling this far in the division, and Corey has really improved in that department, so I don't think he's going to get away with takedowns and holding Corey there. Corey is also very long and lengthy and should be hard to hold down. Plus, Corey is just such a sniper. I think it's going to be a much quicker striker there right now at the age they're at as well. Breaking this down, Corey has a kickboxing style. He trains out of Forge Fight Club. He has a brown belt in BJJ. He had the 2021 Knockout of the Year against Frankie Edgar. He's an RFA and LFA alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-1 since 2023. 7 of his 17 wins are via knockout. Now, Davison has a black belt in BJJ. He's a former flyweight champion with 2 separate title defenses. He had the fastest title fight turnaround in UFC history, 21 days in 2020 during COVID. He's tied with Demetrius Johnson and Alexandre Pantoja for the most finishes in UFC flyweight division history at 7. He has the fastest submission in UFC flyweight division history, 1 minute and 57 seconds against Alex Perez. He has the most knockdowns landed in the UFC flyweight division history at 11. The most submission attempts in UFC flyweight division history at 20. The shortest span between a trilogy in UFC history at 406 days. The first trilogy in UFC history consisting of both fighters having 3 consecutive bouts in that trilogy. He was the 2020 Fighter of the Year and had the 2020 Fight of the Year against Brandon Moreno in their first fight. He also had the 2021 Fight of the Year against Brandon Moreno in their second fight at UFC 256. He's a Jungle Fight alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 3-2 since 2023, 3-1 in the bantamweight division. 9 of his 24 wins are via knockout, 9 via submission, so 18 of his 24 wins via finish. Now, both of these men love to throw unorthodox shots from all kinds of angles, which should make this fight very fun for the fans, especially in the early rounds. The longer this fight goes, I do believe it will favor Corey, but I just see Corey with some big knees, elbow, and long shots taking control of the distance, much like we saw from Ian Gary. For that reason, I'm taking Corey Sandhagen. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Davison Figueiredo is an animal, though. A short guy like him, not many of them would have success moving up to the flyweight division. He's solid everywhere and has really improved his game since coming up. So I'm excited for this card. We got the main event, Bo Nickel show, some good fights early in the main card, and some solid matchmaking in the prelims. But next week, we're going back to Canada, UFC 315 in Montreal, a stacked card full of Canadians. We have some violent matchups and 2 title fights on the line. Valentina Shevchenko finally taking on Manon Fiorot. And then Bilal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena. That's episode 96. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.